for them to hold hands with girls, and if you're doing things like waltz, and I might flush, I might have quicker heartbeats, but kind of I feel good.
I mean, it looked very innocent. The dance looked very innocent dancing. I mean, we're not talking about, club dancing or anything.
I suddenly, but something, this has been a lot of years, but memories are flooding back to me. No, it's true. I can remember when I was in like 5th, 6th grade, and when we would occasionally do something, and holding hands with one of the girls in the class was really
major.
A little bit scary, but also kind of electric. Like, oh my gosh, I'm holding her hand, and it was like, I remember now that was actually it was a big deal back then. So maybe I'm beginning to think that maybe there's a point to this.
I would understand it as the concern mainly from the parents, because they do worry about the issue of, as we put it in Chinese, early romance or early love. When you're not supposed to be in love with someone else. I mean, the romance thing.
That's true, but something that I have to say is we're in society now, you're inundated with television, internet, all kinds of influences, pop stars and their music videos, that are way more suggestive than what these kids would be doing at school.
And anyway, we do see on the streets young students holding hands with each other anywhere, like lovers.
Absolutely.
And well, at the same time wearing the school uniform.
Yeah, that's right.
So you could clearly see these are the kids from the schools, but they're acting like they've been in love for a long time. It's still being practiced actually in some schools in Beijing, and I'm not quite sure whether it's still the same in other countries. But at least you see the evolving process instead of the whole country using the same set of exercise pattern. And these days we see different forms of exercises.
They're mixing it up a bit.
Exactly, in different countries.
That's good.
So at least we see the requirement of that from the society, from the parents, from the students, and at the same time we're also seeing what's happening in these schools.
Yeah.
Actually, that may be the bigger news than just specifically what they're
actually doing.
Is that this big collective thing that that China, there used to be, every Chinese did certain things and they all ate certain foods. Now it's like you say, evolving into something where it's becoming individual. And
diversity.
It's a little more diversified.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's take another break, and when we come back, here is another story which is indeed causing a lot of attention, and this time it's not about exercises.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You're watching Crossover. Welcome back to Crossover. Now, before the break, we had 2 little episodes about exercises. How do we do exercises? As we say, we've been seeing actually this diversity being witnessed in these schools in the whole country. Different places might introduce different forms of exercises. But this next story is still about a young student. It's about a young student called Huang Yibo. He's only 13 years old. But what, is catching the attention of the whole country, virtually the whole country, all these newspapers, is basically he's only 13 years old. But he's wearing, the little badge of 5 stripes.
5 stripes.
5 stripes. That means something. And you explain that. And later. And starting from 2 years old or 3 years old, and he started to watch the main news, the primetime news, 7 o'clock. It's every night. But that's like, the window for all these official news because of what the major happenings of the country. And later on, when he's still very young, maybe 5, 6 years old, he started to read People's Daily, reference news.
It's called 参考消息, reference news.
And 人民日报, People's Daily.
News.
And he's also now a member of, say, the municipal authority of the Young Pioneers.
It's like the Chinese equivalent of the Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
So that's why he's wearing that
The 5 stripes.
5 stripes.
I was going to say, I don't even know that I've ever seen someone with 5 stripes. Usually a school will have 1 stripe, 2 stripes, and 3 stripes.
Right.
And if you're 3 stripes, you're a school leader. Either the, whatever, but you're a school leader. If it's 2 stripes, it's a class leader, that kind of thing. But 5 stripes.
Yeah, and what is been causing tension, the debate, say, about this young student is basically he's still young, 13 years old, but it seems, he's acting like an adult. He's seen by many as a role model, as a model student, because, he's been very active in been involved in all these charity events, and he's been very active in helping his fellow students, in saving food, say, helping others, but at the same time, and also he published lots of articles himself on these public newspapers, and he's got a blog. But what's causing controversy is actually he's only 13 years old, but somehow he's acting like he's an adult.
We have this phenomenon of child prodigies that are extraordinarily good at something or other.
Justin Bieber?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, speaking of hair, but anyway.
Right.
But usually it involves something that's a skill that involves something to do with mental skills like math or music.
Yeah.
Or even you have people who are extraordinarily good dancing or even actors or something like that. But to take on this adult role is a different kind of child prodigy, someone who's very good at acting like an adult. That's weird.
Also kind of like a young leader or almost
Official.
like a young politician, a young official is...
Charlotte, when you were in junior high and high school, don't you remember that there were like kids who were just, you could tell already, they were just going to go into politics?
Yeah.
The way they dressed, the way they would always shake people's hands.
Yeah.
And we even had elections for like class or like school.
Are they born politicians?
School presidents?
Yes,
in a way, maybe.
Yes. I mean, we had school president, class president.
Yes.
And they would run, they would usually win, and they would run it just like, they were just already.
Campaign kind of thing, yeah.
And I'll tell you something else too. I've met a few, not very many, but I've met a few in my life, these extremely rich, investment counselors, people who manage other people's money, and they get a huge amount of money. They hang around millionaires and they manage people's money. And I met a few of these people, and one thing they had in common was that they all started in junior high and high school, and many of them had made, their first $100,000 or something when they were in high school.
Yeah, that is why some would argue, don't blame the child. I mean, he's not the one to blame, and if he's the one to pursue a life like that, let him be. Well,
blame. What's wrong with it?
Because this is kind of they're accusing the child and also his parents for being too, say, practical. Because it seems you're going that direction. You're putting that 5 stripes no one else has done, something like that.
Well, it sounds to me like maybe now it's sort of gotten bigger than life almost. You said he has a blog. He's received a lot of media attention. So maybe now you can't necessarily say whether or not he's doing it because he really wants to be or because, of the attention it brings him or his family for that matter. I mean, you just don't know.
Do you think the issue is that people think that kids should behave like kids, that they're like losing their childhood, or you think that's the reason?
Maybe.
They find it weird?
Although in China, most kids don't really have a childhood in that regard because they're studying so hard.
Yeah, the college entrance exams,
really,
the Gaokao rob you of your childhood.
It's from when you start school to when you go to college. You're it's
Working
one big
constantly.
long study session.
I knew kids like that when I was in high school who, I didn't usually, they seemed to be weird. People didn't hang out with them because they were off in another world, but they were already reading foreign policy magazines and stuff. And they were usually in debate class.
Yeah.
And I hear about famous public intellectuals like Noam Chomsky, who when they were 13 or 14 were publishing papers. So these kids exist.
I guess one of the concerns, what is really concerning of the public and why we say this is a controversial issue, the case with only this one boy, and he's catching the attention of the whole society. And I guess the worry is whether it's out of his own choice or this is being pushed by the parents, by the school, by people around him.
Right.
And the worry might also be with whether more children will be taking that path instead of focusing on what they are supposed to do as a kid, as a student in the school. And
which is a danger with anything, really. I mean, just then we mentioned Justin Bieber, you know, how many kids are trying to be like Justin Bieber.
Right.
And that's because he's in the public eye and you know, he's trotted out to be role model, this, that, or the other thing. Just like this kid, you know, maybe he naturally has these tendencies and some parents or even some children might look at him and think, oh, I want to be like that, or my child should be like that. And that's kind of, I think that's unavoidable, really.
But how would you feel if you had a kid and at age 13 he started like at the dinner table saying, and welcome back to Crossover. I mean, would you say, hey, slow down.
Well, if,
you know, would you encourage him or would you discourage him?
Yeah, but if my kid would do something like that, hosting Crossover, yes, do it.
Let me retire.
Right, exactly. You know, or produce your own show in a way. But basically what you're saying is, I mean, if he's the one doing that, it's no different, from someone like Justin Bieber doing singing, or like someone.
Can we get off of Justin Bieber?
Just, you know, at the very least, as you were saying, at least this boy is not just, you know, writing articles and stuff, but he's actually doing good things with his time, volunteer work and you know, helping society. And that's, I mean, in some ways, if you're trying to emulate someone or you know, encourage your child to you know, try new things or different things, that's a good thing to do.
What lots of people don't feel comfortable with is if you take a look at his pictures, and he's only 13 years old, but when he takes pictures, he's always posing like he's a high official, like in his 50s or 40s. I mean,
a little old man.
Overly mature, overly mature, and people would expect a teenager to be acting like a teenager, to be more lively. But if I guess, and there is also another story, an old story actually. You know, it's about a genius, you know, in ancient China, but he's been ruined by his parents because, you know, he was taken by his parents to different occasions to just to show off how talented he is. And I guess the society, the media is also worried about the same case would happen.